While the rest of the film industry struggles to play it safe, or rather plays it safe, there are a few people in the television and film business, or rather entering the television and film business, who are entrepreneurs. And these guys and gals really not only challenge the status quo, which I believe is the wrong description, or rather not the appropriate description. I would say these guys and gals actually go against the conventional wisdom of filmmaking, or what the conventional wisdom has to say about filmmaking and content creation. One such person is Peter Jackson, and my favorite filmmaker and director. And this is what I'm going to be telling you about in this episode of The Story Dude Show. Welcome, story lovers, to The Story Dude Show with your host, Jared Dean Winchester, bringing you a fresh set of episodes for the month of October 2022. So let's get right into it, shall we? Okay, what is so special about Peter Jackson and other entrepreneurial creative practitioners and directors or filmmakers like him? For starters, they do something that no other filmmaker dares to do, or no other filmmaker thinks about doing. For example, in the Hobbit series of movies, what Peter Jackson did is that instead of filming the entire movie set, or the entire set of movies, in the regular 24 frames per second, which is how movies are traditionally shot, Peter Jackson chose to double that frame rate. He chose to film at 48 frames per second, which I found, to my amazement, that a lot of critics disagreed with that choice. Why? Zeus only knows the answer to that question. However, when I watched the Hobbit series of movies, it did not affect the storytelling. It did not affect the story. However, when critics complain about a filmmaker's choice, technical choice for that matter, they have lost all credibility, because they're not criticizing the film, or they're not critiquing the work. What they're doing is the choices that were made by the filmmaker, they're criticizing that. Which, my hope, is taken with a grain of salt, or pepper, as the case may be. Excuse the pun. But a lot of you filmmakers out there, don't be afraid to take the big risk. Now, I know that playing it safe will get you the big bucks and will get you a return back on your investment in the movie that you're trying to make. But think about this. Peter Jackson did something for the fantasy genre where he humanized the characters. For example, in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the elves, he humanized the elves in that movie, or in those set of movies, and thus destroying the stereotypical belief or the conventional wisdom about what elves are really like. To further exemplify this, in Hollywood, S.S. Rajamouli, another filmmaker, which I have come to like, he is, in my opinion, by looking at his work, I can clearly tell that he is following in the footsteps of Peter Jackson, because the cinematography was great, the stories were great, and looking at the production design in Rajamouli's movies, it is self-evident that this filmmaker takes risks. But it is also self-evident that Tollywood is making strides and understanding how filmmaking works. Now, the reason why I like Peter Jackson, not because he brought out the Lord of the Rings movies, because I'll tell you a little story about that, because when Lord of the Rings first came out, I was hesitant. I was like a little bit apprehensive about watching it, even though people were mentioning it and recommending that I watch it. I was a little hesitant until I took the plunge, watched it for myself, and I was impressed. Straight from the first installment, The Fellowship of the Ring, right through to the last installment, The Return of the King. So, also, did a little bit of research on Peter Jackson, and I realized both of our journeys into filmmaking or into content creation started pretty similarly. Mine started with a handycam or with a camcorder. I started filming with a camcorder, and then 2004, by chance, I realized that filmmaking and television was my cup of tea. And so, start my journey. Peter's, on the other hand, started very similarly, where he was presented with an 8mm film camera. Now you can read about this. And he was making movies with his mates, or with his friends, as some parts of the world you like to call it. And from there, he began to make movies as a director. Now, the only difference between him and I, or him and me, is that he is more of a visionary, a visual type. I am kind of visual, but I express it using words, using illustrative words. So that's the main difference. He thinks in pictures in his mind. He gets a picture, but I think in terms of words, how the words can be put down on a piece of paper. So that's how our journey started. And I love the fact that he takes risks despite objections and rejections, which I'm pretty sure a lot of the creative professionals and content creators in the film industry or in any creating content industry have experienced rejection and criticisms to some degree. But Peter persisted no matter what happened. Now look at him. He is now the biggest name in Hollywood, or one of the biggest names in Hollywood. And I would have to say, given the scope and given the fact that he has his own special effects business or company or studio in conjunction with his production company, Wingnut Pictures, and the fact that he only wants to film in New Zealand, where he grew up in. Now, I respect him for that, because Peter Jackson just simply wants to showcase the beauty of New Zealand. There's nothing wrong with that, by sticking only to one country for filming locations, New Zealand, and by showcasing what beauty Aotearoa has to offer. Now, Aotearoa, if you don't know, is the Maori name for New Zealand. For all of you foreigners out there who haven't visited New Zealand, take note, Aotearoa is the official Maori name for New Zealand. Apart from that, the one thing he did do that nobody else did, when filming the Lord of the Rings movies, he literally filmed all three of them at the same time in a span of 15 months, even though these films were released about a year or so apart from each other. The fact that he took a risk like that, or he took initiative like that, is what should propel a filmmaker, or what should inspire a content creator or a creative practitioner to model his or her content and take risks. Now, for me, I'm hoping to find a way to take risks in a different way. So, there you have it. That is my favorite director and filmmaker of all time, until somebody else comes along. So, with that being said, this is Jared Dean Winchester, also known as the Story Dude. Please like, comment, and subscribe, because I post anywhere between 2 to 3 episodes per month of the Story Dude show, so be sure to check them all out. And as always, until I see you again, don't forget to turn that page.